So a song about believing in miracles, a song about the power of belief, is really a song that invites us into a master's way of living. And that's what I want to talk about this morning and throughout the month of May. My theme, my series is all about a master's program in spirituality. A master's program in spirituality. Some of you in this room have not only graduated from college and earned an AA or a BA, some of you have earned a master's. Some of you are even working now to graduate with a master's. Some of you might be like me. I never went to college. I went to seminary. I wish I had gone to college, and there's something about being on a college campus. I feel so blessed, so fortunate that both our son and our daughter have had that experience. And I'll tell you, when I sit in a graduation ceremony, I am just overwhelmed with a sense of emotion, with a sense of inspiration about these young people, young at heart, young in mind, no matter what the chronology is of their age, that are about to step into a whole other level of their life and their experience. So I want to talk this month that we often associate with graduation, with this idea of you and I graduating into the next level of our own spiritual growth and development. A master's program in spiritual growth. A master's program in spiritual growth. I want us to be able to be at that level in our thinking, in our doing, and in our being. I want to share with you a lens through which I'd like you to listen this morning, and a lens through which I'd like you to listen throughout the weeks during the month of May. And it is a model for the way we can look at spirituality and consciousness. You see, there are phases or levels in one's spiritual growth, in one's development in consciousness. And it is important to us to know where we are in that growth and development. Just as in school, we have all sorts of exams that we take, SATs and ACTs and PSATs and God knows a whole alphabet soup of exams. We're going to be taking an exam throughout this month in our master's program of spirituality. And I'll tell you what that exam is going to be here in just a little bit. But you got to listen to the idea of this exam through the awareness of the different levels of consciousness. And there are basically 4 of them, starting with a level that we might call asleep, moving all the way up to a level that we would call the master's level, or the level of enlightenment, the level of being consistently and steadily connected with and aware of the one presence and the one power in the universe operating in and through and as us. And so that first level is important for us to understand, just as it is to understand the second and the third and the highest level, because we want to know where we are in that assessment. That first level is a level that we could call the to-me level of life. The level where it seems as if things are just happening, and it's always the bad things. Things are just happening and we don't know why. It's that level of, we could say, victimhood, that level of poor me, that level of, gosh, I always seem to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. Why are these things happening in my life? That level is a level that we will stay stuck at forever until we give up one very critical behavior. Do you know what it is? Blame. We cannot move past that level of to me, past that level of victimhood, until and unless we are willing to give up blame. Not blaming our past, not blaming our environment, not blaming our parents, not blaming our ex, not blaming our race, not blaming our government, not blaming our family of origin, and not blaming ourselves either. That deserves an applause. We begin to awaken when we drop the blame. And what we put in its place is a sense of responsibility, a sense of accountability. And that level of consciousness is a powerful level. It is one of the biggest and easiest to identify the difference between it and the level before. That level where we no longer feel as if life is happening to us, but now we know that life is happening by us. We could call the first level the level of the mortal, and the second level the level of the metaphysician. It is the level at which we finally get how powerful we really are, how powerful the mind is, how powerful our attitude is. And we begin to create, we begin to demonstrate, we begin to manifest. How many of you remember when you first came into this teaching, you first started practicing these ideas, these principles, these techniques, and suddenly magic started to happen. Suddenly you demonstrated new good in your life, new possibility. Raise your hand if you remember that. How did that feel? Oh, convince me, because there was an incongruency between the word and the feeling. How did it feel? Right, it did, and it happened for a while, and you still have it happening every once in a while, I'm sure. It's that level that movie The Secret spoke about, but you know what? That's not the only level. In fact, we are not meant to stay just at that level. I think the universe conspired in a really delightful way and knew that we are all about growth and development and the unfoldment of our consciousness, that the universe, God's Spirit knew, I got to give them some experience that's going to be so delicious and so positive, this experience that they can create stuff. They are powerful beyond what they thought before, and they can demonstrate a life of happiness and joy and success. I got to give them that, because otherwise they're going to choose to stay asleep. So I'm going to give them that, but then I've got to let them know that that's not all there is. Because have you noticed that level can be exhausting? Have you noticed that? Because that level is all about you doing all the work by yourself. It's the by me level. It's the by me level. The next level of awakening, the next level of consciousness, we would call the through me level. It's really like the level of the mystic. It's the level that understands, wait a minute, I can be a vehicle. Wait a minute, yes, I need to be awake. Yes, there is much I am capable of. There's tremendous power that I have. However, there's something more. And that something more I can cooperate with. And as I do, instead of efforting so much, I begin to move into this fluidity. I begin to move into something that we in Eastern teaching would call effortless effort. Take that on for a moment. Doesn't that feel so much better than just doing it all yourself? Yeah, it does. So, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. And the fourth level is rather difficult to speak about. The fourth level is a level of absolute unification. It's a level in which there is no separation between us and this presence and power of God. And we get it not just in theory, not just in the head, but we get it by the very core of our being, and we live from that place of oneness, that place of no separation, consistently and all of the time. There are some of us in this room who have popped in and out of that from time to time. But even though we can occasionally pop into that Messer's level of thinking and living and being and doing, have you noticed how easy it is to fall right back asleep? Raise your hand if you've noticed in yourself and in others how easy it is to fall right back asleep. Sometimes it is the tiny things that will cause us to fall right back asleep. Do you know how easy it can be to fall asleep during rush hour traffic? And I do not mean literally fall asleep. I'm talking about falling asleep in consciousness, right? Or when things break down or things don't work out the way that we want. Sometimes it can be really easy to fall asleep, to move into blaming. Boy, the city of San Diego should be expanding that freeway right now, right? That's blame. So I told you we're going to take a test. And I told you it was important to listen through and see through the lens of, is it to me? Is it by me? Is it through me? Is it as me? So our exam is called the LRE. Now, you've probably not heard of this exam before. It's not like the SAT or the ACT. There is no math. Isn't that good? And I'm sorry if you're a math teacher. I know I'm hard on math sometimes, and I actually like math. There is no math. There is no reading. There is no writing. But breathe. Those are easier compared to what I'm about to give you. The LRE, actually, let me give credit where credit is due. A ministerial friend of mine came up with this little exam. The LRE stands for 3 areas that we want to look at in our lives, 3 areas we want to assess ourselves on to see how we can move into the master's level of spirituality. So the L stands for life's challenges. Life's challenges. It also can stand for life's opportunities. The L is all about who shows up in meeting life, in you. Is it the victim, the mortal that shows up? Is it the metaphysician that shows up? Is it the mystic that shows up? Is it the master that shows up? When life doesn't go the way that you want, what's your habitual response? Is it to look outside and blame someone, or to even look inside and blame? When life doesn't show up the way that you want it to, or happen the way that you want it to, do you just dig in and make it happen, exercising every ounce of your energy, your skill, your talent, your mind, but you forget God in the picture? Are you able to meet it from a place of the mystic, the person that knows who and what he or she is, but also knows there's this presence, this power called God? Are you able to meet it as the master would, where there is no sense of separation whatsoever? When life begins to be difficult, and it will for all of us, different things come into our lives at different times, we need to know where our go-to place is, our go-to reaction. Because only when we do can we become aware and remember that there is another level at which we can operate. So if you are honest with yourself and you know, boy, I'm still really stuck in blame when things don't work, then your homework assignment would be to do a couple of things. It would be to notice that your habitual response is blame, and then it would be to remember that the next level is a level of accountability or responsibility. Your assignment then would be to look at, all right, if I were to respond to this thing from a place of being accountable and responsible, what would I be thinking? What would I be saying? What would I be doing? How would I be feeling? If your gravitational pull, your habitual way of responding to things when they are difficult, is to come at it from the place of by me, because you are strong, you are smart, you have a lot of energy. If you know that your way of dealing with it is you're going to do everything you possibly can, you're going to pull out all those affirmations, all those visualizations, you're going to do all that stuff, then your assignment would be to do what? To bump it up to the next level and say, okay, wait a minute. That works. There's nothing wrong with the by me level. But what if I were to breathe into it a little bit? What if I were to pause and say, wait a second, I don't have to do this all by myself. Let me give God some room to work through me. Let me remember that there is a presence, a power, and energy in the universe that I can breathe into and invite into. Do you get the feel for these different levels of acknowledging wherever you tend to normally respond, and to challenge yourself by first remembering what's the next level above, the next more developed, mature, if you will, level of consciousness? And if you already operate pretty darn consistently from the level of the mystic, the level of the fluid, the one with the one, then you go up to the next level as well. Okay? So I told you the L was life's challenges. The R stands for relationship, and a very specific kind of relationship. Our relationship to God. Say that with me. Our relationship to God. What is your relationship to God? If you were to try to describe that to yourself or to another, how would you describe it? How healthy is it? How healthy is it? You know, I've heard that one of the statements that men don't ever like to hear when they're in relationship is, we need to talk. I read that a long time ago. I thought that's very true. That tends to be very true. When a woman says to a man, honey, we need to talk, it usually means there's going to be a big, serious conversation. When was the last time you talked to God? Really talked to God, right? Our relationship with God. What is your relationship with God like? Do you need to have a talk with God? Do you need to have regular conversations with God? Yeah, you do. We in Unity practice prayer and meditation. And they are different. And it's not, I believe, it should not be one or the other. It should be both and. And very simplistically put, we could say that prayer is more the activity of talking to God. It's more of an reaching out, reaching into. The words can be spoken or the words can be unspoken, more as thoughts. But it is a talking to God, whereas meditation is a listening to God, a listening for God, a listening for that still small voice. To have a really healthy, good relationship with God, by whatever name you call God, you need both. You need to talk to, and you need to listen to. So what is your relationship with God like? What is your spiritual life really like? Because our spiritual life is directly connected to what our relationship to God is like. Too many people practice casual spirituality. We know the dangers of casual sex, or at least we've read about them, right? Too many of us, you didn't expect me to say that, did you? Too many of us practice casual spirituality. And you know what that looks like? Casual spirituality is a spirituality that we pull out and we go to when we are in a crisis. And it doesn't matter where the crisis is, when we get really bad news about something, about our health, about our finances, about our relationship, and we don't know what else to do, then we start bargaining with God. Then we start praying. Then we might even go to church for a few weeks in a row. But then when things kind of even out, it's as if we fall back to sleep. And we say, I don't need it anymore. Because it's working. I don't need it anymore. Can you imagine the health of a relationship, a human relationship, if you only went to that person when everything in your life was falling apart? Do you think that person would really want to stick around with you for a very long time? Truthfully, do you? If you had a one-sided relationship where you only talked but never listened to that other person, do you think that relationship would work very well? We're very good. If we're going to do one or the other, we tend to be better talking to God, and it's usually like a laundry list of do this, do that, do this, do that, do this, do that. It's the listening that's equally important, and to have this, that, and the other happen in my life. Who do I need to be? What do I need to become? What do I need to let go of, right? It can't be one-sided. It can't be one-sided. Now, there's a danger when I use a metaphor like that, human relationship, and trying to talk about our relationship to spirit, to God. Because we in this room do not look at God as a physical anthropomorphic being. So there are places where that example might fall apart, but nonetheless, there's the gist of the truth is in there. That in order to really experience a master's degree, if you will, in our spiritual growth and unfoldment, we have to take care of our relationship with Spirit. We have to be in contact with Spirit on a conscious and aware basis. And that means our prayer work. That means our meditation work. Okay? And then the E stands for our earth stewardship. Now, I told you that I got the general idea for this lesson from a ministerial friend and colleague of mine. And when I first heard earth stewardship, I thought, well, okay, I absolutely believe in the importance of earth stewardship. But as I thought about it more, I said, yeah, I really do think, I agree, it does belong in a master's level program of spiritual practice. Because we are not separate, isolated, independent beings traveling on this spaceship called Earth. We are interdependent not only on one another, but on all sentient beings, all of them. And that means that part of our growth as spiritually minded beings must always include our relationship with the earth and everything on it as well. And everything on it as well. And as we really get that, then we begin to look at, well, how am I showing up around that? Do I really consider myself to be a child not only of two biological beings, but a child of this planet as well? Am I willing to look inside my own life and my own lifestyle and challenge myself to take better care of this precious planet that we live on together? It's amazing to me both the power we have as human beings as well to do good, as well as the power we have as human beings to do harm to our planet itself. Some of you may have heard an NPR story that I heard this past week. It's about 30 years now since the disaster at Chernobyl. Do you remember hearing about it? My brother and sister-in-law and their two young boys were stationed in Germany at the time. And in fact, my oldest nephew has throat cancer that has now finally been directly linked to radiated food that he ate and radiated milk that he consumed as a youngster, and so was the other American soldiers stationed in Germany at the time. Many of their young kids are experiencing the same thing. The fascinating thing to me about hearing this story about Chernobyl on NPR this past week was that there are scientists who are now studying an interesting phenomenon. So after Chernobyl, it became like a dead man's zone, a no man's zone, where human beings were not allowed to live there for their own safety. What's happened in the 30 years since, as people have left for their own safety, the animal kingdom is coming back and thriving. Now, animals live a lot shorter period than people do, and it's not known how healthy they are. They look healthy. The scientists are saying, they look healthy. Contracting cancer can usually take a long period of time. But the point being, as soon as people were removed from that environment, the environment started to naturally come back to balance. Do you feel, as I do, that you want to be on the other end as a human being, that you want to be the kind of human being that finds ways to peacefully coexist not just with other people, but with our planet and all sentient beings as well? There is a basic teaching that enlightened people, masters such as His Holiness the Dalai Lama, talk about, enlightened beings that say, every problem, whether it's a problem that an individual is experiencing or the serious problems we have in our world today, that at its heart, every problem is a spiritual problem. That no matter how it manifests, whether we're talking about war and disease and poverty and a non-sustainable environment at the rate that we're going, that those are effects, and that the solutions can't be legislated. We can temporarily make improvements, but you can't legislate consciousness. You can't legislate peacefulness or responsible living or the kind of heart that chooses to say, you know what, I want to be awake to the world. I want to, even though it may be uncomfortable, I want to be awake to the issues that impact not just people I care about that live close to me, but the whole human family and the whole sentient family. I want to be aware of it, and I know I can't do everything, but I will do something. I will do something. I will pay attention and I will make more conscious choices. I hope you're proud. The Unity Center, as a community and as an organization, has made some significant strides in our earth stewardship. Last year, we invested a lot of money. It was about $126,000 to put solar on our roof. We want to reduce our carbon footprint. We hired, even though it's a little more expensive, a company that uses all green products. We don't have the softest toilet paper in the world or the fastest flushing toilets using the most water. We don't hand out a program every single Sunday. We don't mail you a lot of paper, even though some of us might still prefer paper. We've sometimes received some criticism, imagine that, and some pushback for some of those decisions. But it's so important when we make choices to do the right thing for the right reason, it doesn't mean that we may not experience some criticism or pushback. And so in our individual lives, if we are really growing spiritually, if we are really committed to living at a higher, more conscious level, then we will challenge ourselves along the full spectrum of our life toward all of our lifestyle practices and issues. We don't have to be perfect. But we do have to be willing to be aware and to consistently challenge ourselves. What's my next level? Not your neighbors. You don't go sitting here and saying, oh, well, the church should do this or the church should do that. You say, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? You can give us suggestions. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. But what do I need to do? Does this make sense what I'm saying? Okay, so anyway, a master's course in spirituality is a course in consistently taking our own assessments with love, not from a place of judging ourselves, but from a place of assessing ourselves. Where am I on the spectrum? What is the gravitational pull? Where do I usually show up around life challenges? How am I showing up around issues in the world, environmentally, globally, and every other way? How am I showing up in my relationship with God? Taking an assessment, not judging ourselves for where we are, but inviting ourselves to take the next level up. Namaste.